It's finally time. It is time for Volume 15. Hi, hello, welcome to Pages in the Stars. My name is Ash. If you're new here, hello. If you're returning, welcome back. And if you haven't already subscribed, go ahead and hit that subscribe button down below so you can be alerted to all my bookish, not bookish, and sometimes ranty content. Today I am continuing my breakdown and review of the manga series Zatch Bell. Been doing it on my channel probably since about the middle of last year. We are up to volume 15, and if you've been watching these videos, if you've been watching these breakdowns, you know anytime I have mentioned volume 15, I haven't been thrilled about it. It's looked like it's something I'm not looking forward to. You could even go as far as to say that I've been avoiding it. And I have been avoiding it. But we are finally here. We've arrived at volume 15. Some housekeeping, a few things before we dive into this breakdown and review. First thing, I am giving you all a headphone warning. This is your volume, your headphone warning. You may not need it, but I am anticipating that I am going to get loud in this video. So that is your official volume and headphone warning. Second thing, that objectivity that I had last video, yeah, it doesn't exist here. Objectivity is not going to be a thing during the duration of your stay on Pages in the Stars for this video. The last thing I want to bring up, which I have brought up in the previous videos, is although this is a breakdown and review of the manga series, I am going to talk about the anime in certain parts just because the anime was my first experience with Zatch Bell. So yes, this is absolutely a breakdown and review of the manga series, but there will be parts where I will talk about my initial experience with certain parts of the series, which was with the anime. Now that we've got the housekeeping out of the way, let's jump into this breakdown and review. I've got my tea. I don't think it's going to keep me calm, but we're going to do it. Alright, so we start off volume 15 actually checking back in with Wanrei, Lien, Tia, and Megumi, who have just defeated Saolon and Genso. And there's this really sweet scene between Tia and Wanrei where Tia goes up to Wanrei and asks him to teach him everything that he knows about Kung Fu because Tia wants to be just like Wanrei. And I love that we see this like big brother, little sister relationship kind of developing between Tia and Wanrei. Again, I know this is Zatch's series, but I like that we get to see other relationships developing and playing out among the other Momoto and among the other teams. I also really like that Wanrei said that because he is a king who protects and Tia is a Momoto who relies pretty much solely on defensive spells, that he can't think of a better person to pass down his knowledge to. I really enjoyed that little scene between the two of them. And then we get to the battle between Kiddo Dr. Riddles, Kanchime Fulgore, and Belgum E.O. Now, Belgum E.O. is this giant, mummified, mummy-like Momoto who looks like he's permanently glued to his chair. He promises to let the group pass if they can entertain him, because here's the thing, he was trapped in stone for 1,000 years, and in those 1,000 years he became incredibly bored, so he promises to let them pass if they're able to entertain him, which, hey, seems easy, right? Because we've got Fulgore, the invincible Fulgore, Iron Man Fulgore, Superstar Fulgore, right? He's going to be able to entertain Belgum E.O. It works for a little bit. It does work for a little bit. In fact, Belgum E.O. gets so excited during Fulgore's performances that he just keeps launching all of these spells at random because he's really excited by Fulgore's performance. Raikou does a really good job of lulling us into a false sense of security. Belgum E.O. goes as far to say that he felt like their performance was maximum good. So you really feel like, oh, is this going to be easy? Are our characters going to get off easy? Until Belgum E.O. does start trying to attack them, because in the middle of his singing, he bit his tongue and launched himself into the ceiling and then threatened to punish everyone on behalf of his chair. The punish everyone on behalf of his chair isn't what's in the English version, it's in the Japanese version. Apparently it's a Sailor Moon reference. Anyway, Belgum E.O. has launched himself into the ceiling and now he's mad. He's big mad. And as I've brought up in previous videos, or the video leading up to this, there's not a whole lot that this team of Kanchime, Fulgore, Dr. Riddles, and Kiddo can do, because neither Kiddo nor Kanchime have any type of defensive spells, and Kanchime and Fulgore don't really know how to use Kanchime's spell set to to the full benefit, to their advantage. So they're really at a disadvantage here, given the sheer size of Belgamiyo and the amount of attacks that he has. This is where my objectivity completely flies out the window. Kiddo and Dr. Riddles essentially launch a sneak attack at Belgamiyo, and Kanchime and Fulgore have the absolute unmitigated gall to ask them, why are you launching a sneak attack? Why are you trying to make him even more mad? And Dr. Riddles, who at this point has way more patience than I ever would in this situation, explains to them, what are you talking about? We have to take every second we can to attack him. We don't have any defensive spells, so any opening we get, we have to use to attack him. Dr. Riddles, the voice of reason. So Dr. Riddles develops a plan, and his plan is to have Kanchime transform into the floor. So basically have Kanchime blend into the floor, and as Kanchime's blending into the floor, he's going to sneak closer to the book owner of Belgamiyo and burn the book. While Kanchime is doing this, Dr. Riddle plans on using Kiddo essentially as a distraction so Belgamiyo doesn't notice Kanchime sliding across the floor. Except guess what? Belgamiyo does notice it, and he starts sliding. He doesn't get up, but he starts sliding his chair towards Dr. Riddles. And it turns out that Belgamiyo is not permanently glued to his chair. He can stand up, and he stands up, picks up his chair, and brings it down right on top of Dr. Riddles. So Dr. Riddles collapses to the floor. Kiddo immediately tries to run over to Dr. Riddles to see if he's okay, to check on him, but Dr. Riddles is adamant that Kiddo stays where he is, that Kiddo focuses on the plan and doesn't become distracted and doesn't give up. He tells Kiddo that he doesn't have to worry, that, he, Dr. Riddles, has an indestructible body and he will be completely fine. This is followed up with a thought bubble of Dr. Riddles doing his just kidding, but it's a thought bubble. He doesn't actually say it out loud to Kiddo like he normally would, because he absolutely needs Kiddo to believe that he is going to be fine in this moment, because he knows if Kiddo doesn't believe that, Kiddo is going to lose sight of the battle in trying to help him. Dr. Riddles tells the same thing to Fulgore, not to lose sight of the battle and to keep his eye on Kanchime. If he doesn't, he's going to lose Kanchime forever. Dr. Riddles tries to take a step forward, but his knees collapse. His knees give out from underneath him. And then it's flashback time. So we see Dr. Riddles holed up in what is basically a library of a mansion. There's a knock on the door, a doorbell rings, and Dr. Riddles says, "A visitor? I haven't had a visitor for decades." And what is the first thing Kiddo says upon walking into Dr. Riddles' mansion? "Wow, you've got a lot of books in here." Kiddo then asks Dr. Riddles, what does he do with all of this knowledge, with all of his books? He must do something great. So what is it that Dr. Riddles does? And Dr. Riddles tells Kiddo that he does nothing. And this is where we find out that Dr. Riddles really is a doctor. He used to be a surgeon, in fact, but he quit his practice after he was unable to save the life of a small child in an operation. Not only did he leave his practice, but he essentially completely shut himself away. Kiddo then tells Dr. Riddles that he should come outside and help him win the battle to become Momoto King. If he has all of his books and has all of this knowledge, then it's going to be a waste if he just sits inside and does nothing all day. Talk about out of the mouths of babes. A couple of videos ago, I talked about the great lengths that Dr. Riddles was going through in order to secure the future of the Momoto world. Putting together a team to battle against Zophis and his army of ancient Momoto, making travel arrangements for everyone, doing all this reconnaissance and basically espionage to try and figure out who Zophis was, what type of Momoto he had. Really, the effort that he was putting in to try to make sure that Zophis didn't become king of the Momoto world. Dr. Riddles clearly loves and deeply cares about Kiddo. I'm not here disputing that, but he's not just doing this to help Kiddo become king of the Momoto world. He's doing this to ensure that Kiddo is going to have a future in the Momoto world. So even if Kiddo doesn't win this battle, one of his comrades will win and Kiddo will have a future in the Momoto world, unlike the child who died on his operating table who didn't get the opportunity to have a future. So this isn't just Dr. Riddles trying to help Kiddo become king. This is Dr. Riddles trying to essentially make up for mistakes or failings that he feels like he's made in the past. That this isn't to say that the other book owners aren't deeply invested in this battle, but for Dr. Riddles, it's certainly a lot more personal. Detour number 2, going to make a slight note here. In the original Japanese manga, the child who died on Dr. Riddle's operating table was actually his grandson. That was changed when it was brought over for the English adaptation. I'm assuming because in the US, it's generally not allowed for doctors to treat or operate on their family members. I'm not sure what medical practices are like abroad. If someone in the comments knows more than I do, please, by all means, correct me on this. Dr. Riddle's inner monologue acknowledges that he found happiness, he found joy in helping Kiddo fight these battles, that Kiddo essentially gave him a reason to live because he felt like he was just an old man wasting away. But he also starts to question, why was I collecting all those books? Why was I trying to gather all of that knowledge? And then Belgamiyo launches a spell directly at Dr. Riddles, and it hits him square on. And Dr. Riddles collapses to the ground, but unlike before, he's not getting up. Dr. Riddle's body has essentially had enough at this point. And it's here that Dr. Riddles realizes that he'd been reading all of those books in preparation for this battle. That though all of those books, all of that knowledge, whether he knew it or not, was preparing him for this battle to help Kiddo become Mamoto King. There's a line, it's in the manga, it's also in the anime. If a good king rules the Mamoto world, many lives will be saved. Many more lives than a doctor can save. There's still a lot of things that he feels like he has to teach Kiddo. He can't just lay there on the ground. He's thinking as hard as he can. He can't just lay there on the ground. He has to get up and he has to, try and do something to help Kiddo. And then to further prove my point, he says that he has to do this, for that dearly departed child that passed away on his operating table. Belgamiyo then launches another spell at Dr. Riddles. Except this time, Kiddo jumps in front of it, taking the full brunt of the spell himself. The magnitude of the spell blows a hole in the wall and there's a lot of smoke, and we're kind of just waiting for the smoke to clear. Kiddo's book is on fire. I said in volume 11, when Kiddo was first introduced, that I definitely considered him to be like my OG, one of my first comfort characters. So, when I first saw this scene in the anime, and his book went up in flames, I was quite literally distraught. Because I knew what was coming. I knew that this was the end, that I was about to have to say goodbye to one of my favorite characters, to a character that I found so much comfort and solace in, that I was going to have to say goodbye to him. And it wasn't just the fact that his book was on fire, but it was also the fact that he sacrificed himself for his book owner. He took the full brunt of that spell himself in order to save Dr. Riddles. He gave up any claim he had for the throne of the Mamoto world to save his book owner. There was no inner dialogue. There was no thought. He just ran and did it. And I remember watching this in the anime, literally crumpling to my knees and sobbing. Dr. Riddles is on the floor, still pretty out of it, clutching Kiddo's now burning book. Dr. Riddles feels like he's fading away, but he hears this voice calling out to him. And then the next few pages go back and forth. We're gonna go back and forth between Dr. Riddles and the voice that he's hearing, and then the battle. So we go back to Kiddo, who is fighting by himself. With no book, no spells, he's just out there fighting, literally throwing punches. Clothes are tattered, glasses are smashed, I can't see without these. And little dude's out here battling with smashed glasses. Can he even see? Belgamiyo is laughing because Kiddo is trying to attack Belgamiyo without a spell. Belgamiyo tries to launch a spell at Kiddo, but Kiddo straight jumps up and kicks his jaw closed. So the spell literally backfires on Belgamiyo. So Kiddo is out here trying his hardest to fight and swears that he's gonna make them pay for what they did to Dr. Riddles. Oh, I've been talking a lot about Kiddo and Dr. Riddles. What are Kanchime and Folgore doing at this point, might you ask? Hiding. Kanchime has literally transformed into a rock. He's hiding, transformed as a rock, and Folgore is just, over there on the sidelines. It's not like, hey, maybe we should go out there and help. Maybe we should go do something to assist the literal senior citizen laying in the middle of the floor injured. Back to Dr. Riddles, who is pretty out of it, is aware of himself or aware of everything enough to know that it's Kiddo fighting by himself. Kiddo, who has always looked to him for care and protection, is fighting by himself, which brings me to my next point that I really wanted to talk about in this breakdown and review of Volume 15, is this is a complete 180 that we have seen from the Kiddo that we started with, or the Kiddo that we've seen previously. Up until now, when we've seen Kiddo, he's quite literally pretty much been always attached to Dr. Riddles. He's either sitting on his shoulders, sitting on his hat, sitting perched on his arm. He's always been with Dr. Riddles. This is quite different from Tia, Conchime, even Ponygon, who get their own little adventures by themselves. And one could argue, okay, well, Kiddo was introduced much earlier. There was no point in the narrative for him to go off on his own little independent adventures. But I'm willing to wager that it was more of a deliberate choice, because the relationship between Kiddo and Dr. Riddles is quite different from relationships that we've seen play out. The relationship between Kiddo and Dr. Riddles is very much that of a father and a son who looks to his father for care and protection and love and goes to him when he needs anything. That is the relationship between Kiddo and Dr. Riddles. Kiddo has always been with Dr. Riddles and looked up to Dr. Riddles the same way any child looks to a parent for attention or care or love. Kiddo, who up until this point had been pretty dependent on Dr. Riddles, is now out there fighting by himself. This is not the way we're used to seeing Kiddo. Kiddo relies on Dr. Riddles not just for care and protection, but also for strategy. That's the Kiddo that we've seen. Kiddo that we're seeing now is completely different. Kiddo is also developing his own strategy on how to end this battle as quickly as possible to not only save Dr. Riddles, but also save Conchime and Folgore. So he tells Conchime and Folgore that they need to get Belgamio's spellbook, and Conchime and Folgore's brilliant idea is to just run up and try and grab it from the book owner and burn it with a lighter. Kiddo then tells them you need to use Koparuk, the spell of Conchime's that makes Conchime really small. Once Conchime is small, try and steal the Stone of Moonlight that helps them revive their strength from within. Also, something else about the burning of Kiddo's book. Because the way Kiddo's book burns, or the way Kiddo goes out, is very different from the way we've seen other Momotos go. Usually when a Momoto's book starts burning, their physical form starts to fade. So they do that, their physical being opaque to translucent to transparent, and then they're gone. Kiddo's not doing that. He's not fading. His physical being never starts to fade. We never see that sparkly fading thing. We don't see that with him. So back to Dr. Riddles on the ground, he realizes that the voice that he's hearing is a vision from Kiddo's heart. The vision from Kiddo's heart tells him that it's time to say goodbye, that he has to go now, but thank you, because he's learned everything he needs to know in order to become king. Like the limited power of one person, or the power of teamwork. We break from the Kiddo vision and Dr. Riddles for a moment to go back to Conchime and Folgore and the physical Kiddo in battle. Once Conchime grabs the Stone of Moonlight from Belgamio's book owner, Kiddo tells them that you need to use Dika Paruk, which is the spell that makes that giant illusion of Conchime. The idea here is that Belgamio will see the giant illusion of Conchime attack the illusion, but in attacking the illusion and using all of his spells to attack that illusion, he's going to use up all of his strength from within, and because they took their Stone of Moonlight, they can't replenish their strength from within now that they've lost it, now that they've taken it. This is the point where even Folgore looks at Kiddo and realizes that how are you able to come up with these strategies this quickly? It's like Dr. Riddles is standing right next to you. We go back to Dr. Riddles and the vision from Kiddo's heart. Kiddo starts thanking Dr. Riddles because of all of Dr. Riddle's teachings and the guidance that he provided Kiddo. Kiddo is able to guide everyone and help them get through this battle. The Kiddo vision starts wondering, has he grown up? Would Dr. Riddles be proud of him? Maybe he's become more like Dr. Riddles, and if he's become more like Dr. Riddles, then he's happy, and he really does feel like a king. He tells Dr. Riddles that he always had a lot of fun with him, he always made him laugh, he always made him happy, and then he tells Dr. Riddles that Dr. Riddles is his king. At this point, despite being completely engulfed in flames, Kiddo's book starts to glow. Kiddo tells Dr. Riddles that he has to go, But there's one more spell that has appeared in his book. It's a literal Deus Ex Machina, but we don't care. There's a new spell in his book, and it's going to save not only Dr. Riddles, but it's going to save their friends. And Kiddo walking away before Dr. Riddles reads this last spell, Kiddo tells Dr. Riddles, "I love you." Dr. Riddles reads Kiddo's last spell, and this beautiful, almost ethereal gear goddess fills the room, swallowing Belgamiyo and igniting his book on flames. Saving Dr. Riddles, saving Conchimeo Folgore. But at the end of this, Kiddo's book is gone. And Kiddo is gone. This hurt. This hurt a lot. I don't cry this much, okay? I don't cry this much watching This Is Us. Jack Pearson and the crock pot of doom have nothing on this. But alas, we must keep going. So after Kiddo's book disappears, we're left with Dr. Riddles, Conchime, and Folgore. Conchime goes over to Dr. Riddles and starts apologizing for not being strong enough to save Kiddo. That, Kiddo ended up getting sent back to the Momono world because he and Folgore weren't strong enough to save him. Conchime takes out the Stone of Moonlight that they took from Belgamiyo and puts it near Dr. Riddles, and basically he and Folgore tell him to rest, to take the Stone of Moonlight to heal, that they will go forward and help the others in the battle against Zophis, and try to destroy the Stone of Moonlight. And they're going to do this so they don't to not waste Kiddo's fighting spirit. And Dr. Riddles starts chuckling. He starts laughing. He picks up the Stone of Moonlight and takes it in his hand, allowing the energy from the Stone of Moonlight to help rejuvenate him. And he's determined not to give up because Kiddo would be disappointed in him. He's going to keep going because he doesn't want to lay there and go back to doing nothing like he was when Kiddo found him. So Dr. Riddles is going to see this plan through. It's going to be his tribute. It's going to be how he honors Kiddo. Dr. Riddles is going to complete this mission because it's the only farewell gift he feels like he can give to his Momoto. Now we get to Kyo, Zatch, Sunbeam, and Ponygon, who are still battling against these laser shooting stars. Kyo eventually figures out that the stars are attacking them and know their position based on the sounds that they are making, and his idea is to have Sunbeam armor up Ponygon and Ponygon run around the room to basically test this theory. And in testing this theory, Kyo realizes that the stars are moving in a type of orbit. After some more shenanigans, Kyo figures out that the Momoto that is controlling the stars is underneath the floor. So he has Zatch shoot a Zakaraga at the floor, which opens up the floor, and we finally get introduced to Pamoon. I love Pamoon's character design. This is one of my favorite Zatch Bell character designs. I love the way he looks. But also, I find it a little puzzling that Pamoon controls stars and Layla is the one who has the spells that revolves around the crescent moons. It's just a little puzzling. That's all I'm saying. But anyway, we finally get introduced to Pamoon. Pamoon, like we've seen countless Momoto do, reveals that he's only been using his weakest spells to attack thus far. In using his weakest spells, it allowed him some practice with his stars, because remember, he's been trapped in stone for 1,000 years, so he's a little rusty. Pamoon's a little out of practice. So using those weak spells and hiding underground allowed him some time to practice with the weaker spells, so he could gain precise control over his stars, which we see he has. Sunbeam advises the group that instead of concentrating on attacking the stars, that they should concentrate on looking at their enemy's eyes. By looking at Pamoon's eyes, they're going to be able to read him and understand and know when the attacks are coming. And it's in this intense staring contest that something is revealed. Remember that first stone tablet that Kyo brought home and conducted all those really weird experiments on? It was Pamoon. And remember, we know that within those that they're not asleep in those stone tablets. So Pamoon was aware of every weird little experiment Kyo was doing on his stone tablet. He knew what was going on. He was awake for it. and now he has come face to face with the person who put him through all those weird through all those weird experiments. And Pamoon is not happy. He's not. He's actually pretty enraged as this back and forth is going on, and as the battle is happening. Kyo eventually asks Pamoon, if you're so powerful, why aren't you fighting against Zophis? You know, don't you have some pride? Don't you have some pride in yourself and your fighting and who you are? And Pamoon says that he used to have that type of pride, but there's a special kind of strength that is born. There's a special kind of strength that is born from fear. We actually learn how Pamoon ended up in his stone tablet. We see a little bit of his battle with the Mamoto Goron of the Stone, and we find out that Pamoon was essentially tricked. Goron of the Stone was holding a small girl in his hand, and the girl was screaming, you know, help me, don't attack me. Pamoon decides not to attack the little girl that Goron of the Stone is holding, but it turns out it wasn't a girl that Goron of the Stone was holding. It was one of his snake heads disguised as a girl, and this girl transforms back into the snake and starts moving towards Pamoon, and the snake heads wrap around Pamoon, and Goron turns him into his stone tablet. It's because of this that Pamoon is determined never to show any weakness again. He doesn't care who he's hurting or who's in his way or who he's harming. He does not want to go back to being in stone again. That is his fear. He is not going to go back to stone, whatever it takes by any means necessary. He doesn't care what has to be done, but he's not going back to that stone tablet. It's not happening. And then we get Zatch being Zatch, and this is one of those places where you gotta love Zatch, because Zatch empathizes with Pamoon. He understands what it feels like to be alone. He understands what it feels like to not have anyone. That feeling of being cold, that feeling of being lonely. He understands that. Kyo powers Zatch up with Rousaruk. Remember, this is the spell that makes Zatch, that amplifies the power that Zatch already has. It makes him super fast, it makes him super strong, and Zatch tells Pamoon that he doesn't have to be afraid of being turned back into stone or going back to the Mamoto world, that if he goes back to the Mamoto world, Zatch promises, I'll be your friend, and all of my friends, they'll be your friend too. You don't have to fear being alone anymore. And we've seen this time and time again, that Zatch just has this ability to empathize with others because of all of the things that he's been through. He has this understanding of people, and he wants to reach out to them. Zatch makes connections very easily, and he knows how to try to use those connections. And Zatch knows what that can do. Zatch sees what having friends did for Kyo. Zatch sees what having friends did for Tia, and he knows how having friends has helped him. Zatch understands, and here we go again with one of the running themes in the series, the power of friendship. There is true power in that friendship, and Zatch has seen it. So yeah, he's doing whatever he can to try to appeal to Pamoon and let him know that you don't have to go back to that loneliness. You have people. Let us be with you. And it's not working. That fear of the stone tablets is just too strong. But Zatch being Zatch, seeing how strong that fear in Pamoon is, this only strengthens his resolve to try to become a kind king. Pamoon launches a powerful spell at the group, and Zatch and Kyo counter it with a Bao Zakerga, but Pamoon's spell is powered by his fear of being turned back into stone, by his fear of Zophis. While the Bao Zakerga breaks, Zatch stands there and holds off Pamoon's spell. Now mind you, Zatch is doing this without Rousaruk. Zatch has no power-ups, no strengthening anything. Zatch is holding off a powerful spell sent by a powerful ancient Mamoto. He's doing this with just his body. There's nothing else other than essentially his resolve to become a kind king so no one has to go through this again. Pamoon sees this and understands just how serious Zatch was. And he thanks Zatch for showing him, true power, his power, and he's smiling. Our precious star Mamoto creates a hole in the ceiling and floats everybody up, intending to take them to the Stone of Moonlight, where they'll be able to recover and rejuvenate. So, get their strength back. They then get outside, and once outside, Pamoon, just to be sure, asks Zatch if he was being true, if he was being honest, would he really be his friend? And Zatch, of course, says yes. Moon warns Zatch that Zophis is strong and powerful, but he's going to do everything in his power to help take him down. Except because this is Zatch Bell, and things can't stay good for more than 2 minutes, the absolute pile of bantha fodder reappears and shows his face. I have run out of garbage-related nicknames for Zophis, so we're going to Star Wars garbage nicknames. Zophis is back, Zophis shows himself, and what is the first thing he does? Burns Pamoon's book. Launches a radome, he launches a spell right at Pamoon's book, and of course, remember, because of the spell, the mind control that Zophis has over the book owners of the ancient Momodo, his book owner can't do anything to protect it, so the book owner kind of just lets it happen, although he, again, can't do anything about it, so Pamoon's book is now on fire. And just as soon as we got Pamoon, we're losing him. Before Pamoon goes, he thanks Zatch for opening his eyes and promising to be his friend. He also basically tells Zophis off and says, I'm not afraid of you anymore. I'm not afraid of going back to Stone or going back to the Momodo world, and it's thanks to this little guy over here. But before Pamoon can finish, because Zophis is Zophis and doesn't want to listen to him talk, he launches another spell at Pamoon's book, which speeds up the process, and Pamoon is gone. We're at the point now, we're left with Kyo, Sunbeam, Zatch, and Ponygon, and Zophis, except it's not just Zophis, because with a snap of his finger, Zophis summons the rest of his ancient Momodo army. We literally just see them pop out from the shadows. And Penny and Bianco are back, coming with the flying Momodo from the sky. There's a literal army of ancient Momodo, and okay, because of the battle that Kyo and Ponygon and Zatch and Sunbeam have been through, they're not really in a position to fight right now. Zatch and Ponygon try to hold them off, but it's just not working. Honestly, it looks like all hope is about to be lost. There are several spells that are headed towards our heroes here, except then someone comes in with a very familiar spell. Sherry and Brago quite literally come out of nowhere. So Sherry and Brago are back, which is great because our heroes at this point were pretty much doomed. Sherry and Zatch and Q exchange some words. Sherry creates this line with this staff that she has, and she tells them, hey, stay behind this line. And at this point, these guys know better than to not listen to Sherry and Brago. They kind of say, hey, you're gonna need our help to fight, and Sherry and Brago just walk towards this army of ancient Momodo, determined to take them on by themselves. And as a shocker to no one, they do. They absolutely, go to town on these Momodo. Sherry and Brago's fighting style is so coordinated and so strong that they are literally taking down Momodo after Momodo after Momodo after Momodo. Even when the ancient Momodo try to coordinate their attacks, it doesn't really work. Sherry and Brago just change course and adapt and find a way to mow them down. They were just able to shift gears really quickly. Sherry and Brago as a fighting duo are always fun to watch because of how strong they are, and you get to see exactly how much they've grown as a fighting duo in this battle with how many Momodo they're able to take down. Not only do you get to see some new spells from Brago, but you get to see Sherry fight. Sherry's got some really cool physical moves to her, and we get to see her use them in this battle. While Sherry and Brago are fighting, Kyo tells Zatch to watch them closely because if Zatch truly wants to become king, this is going to be the duo to beat. And then Kyo notices something, that Sherry and Brago are using a lot of Brago's weaker spells. They're using Race, they're using a couple of new spells that are cool spells, but they're definitely not Brago's strongest spells. And then he sees that a lot of the weak spells that they're using are on the humans, and they are sending the human beings across the line with them. And Kyo realizes something is coming. Sherry and Brago jump behind this line, and Sherry reads a spell of Brago's that we haven't seen before, Baber Gravidan, and it is this massive wall of immense gravitational pressure that absolutely destroys the remaining ancient Momodo. I'm trying to imagine the force with which the gravitational force that is coming from Brago right now. I remember watching this in the anime. I was like, this is cool. Like, it's cool because it's magic, but it's cool to think of it from a scientific perspective. Like, how much gravitational pressure is this? Like, what is the measurement of this? Do we have a measurement of this, or is this just pure Mamoto power? Do we not have the ability to measure this gravitational pressure because this dude's not human? I would like to know. Anyway, the rest of the ancient Mamoto army is gone. Sherry and Brago just cleaned house. And Sherry walks up, looking up at Zophis, who's just floating in the sky. And what does Sherry say to Zophis? Bonjour. That is it. That is the end of volume 15. Sherry walks up to Zophis with absolute confidence, knowing that Zophis kind of underestimated them, thinking that his ancient Mamoto army was going to be enough to take down the two of them, and it wasn't. So Sherry and Brago have every right to be smug right now, and Zophis just has to stand there and Zophis just has to stand there and look at what they did and look at the army that they destroyed. All of Zophis's hard work, and not to say that, again, our core protagonists, Zatch and Kyo and Tia and all those other guys, not to say that they haven't played their part, but a huge chunk of Zophis's ancient Mamoto army was taken out by Brago and Sherry. So yeah, every right to be smug right now. Yeah, that is the end of volume 15. I can't believe I got through it. I have been dreading doing this video since I started the series because I knew it was going to be emotional damage. Volume 15 hurt. It still hurts as an adult. You can hear, I know you could hear my voice breaking throughout this entire video, but I think it almost hurt more in the manga than it did in the anime, because at least between Kiddo's book burning and Pamoon, we had some breathing space. There were a couple of episodes in between, but you get no breathing room here. You lose Kiddo, and then you're introduced to Pamoon, and it seems like another potential ally to help Zatch and Kyo, kind of like Layla, and then he's gone. So volume 15 hurt. Volume 15 was painful. Even with Brago and Sherry coming in and cleaning house at the end, it's not less important. It's just hard to move on. I've been a fan of this series since 2006. So we're talking 16 years later, and I still get emotional over some of these scenes. I still get emotional over Kiddo's book being burned. It will always hit me. I've said it so many times, but Kiddo was definitely one of my first comfort characters. Case in point, I have this here. I framed it. So this is a drawing of Kiddo that my friend did for me. I've showed it in my videos before. And then someone was kind enough to mail me the postcard that came with some of the Shin Owen Fair merch from their Zatch Bell stuff that got released last year, because I wasn't able to get the postcards. The fact that he walked in to Dr. Riddle's mansion and said, "Wow, you have a lot of books," confirming what we all said, what we all, figured, oh, he's probably a Mamoto who really likes books just based off his appearance. Then I run an entire YouTube channel yelling about books. So Kiddo will always have a very special place in my heart, no matter how many times I go through this series. Yeah, he went out like a champ. Saving his friends, saving Dr. Riddles. I couldn't have asked for a better way for him to go out. It just still hurts. But we're going to wrap this video up on that note. Thank you to those of you who have been sticking with the series and have been sticking with me. I appreciate it to no end. Let me know in the comments what you thought. Let's talk. Let's have a discussion. Give a like, give a subscribe if you feel so inclined, and I will see everyone in the next video. Bye.